What am I watching? What in the hell am I watching on Welcome to Plathville? Someone answer this for me immediately. Okay, last night was episode 7. If you're wondering, how long is this? I mean, this humiliation of Micah, that's really what this season should be about. I know this season is about the engagement, the falling in love, and eventually the wedding of Zach and Lydia, but this should be the humiliation of Micah Plath. Oh my God. First of all, the biggest thing you need to know about last night's episode, because I know some of you don't watch the show, you just listen to my recaps. Micah and Veronica go to see a therapist. Now, therapists, I've been in therapy for a decade, whether it was mindful eating therapy because I had an emotional eating disorder. I'm in marriage counseling still. I love it. My husband and I go every month. Okay. This therapist, she looked like she wasn't even trained for this. I mean, she was like fantastic with them, but she's like, Veronica, like, do you hear what you're saying, girl? You want to sling mud? You want an eye for an eye? Like, you can't even be in any relationship if that's the motto. It was crazy last night. Okay. Crazy. So we're going to break down the whole thing. And by the way, I do have to offer a bit of a correction. I had said the season finale, which we just hit episode 7 this week. Episode 8 is going to be like the leading up of the wedding. Episode 9, I think, will be the actual wedding, or 10. And then 11, 12, 13 are going to be the fallout from the wedding. So initially the finale was going to be the wedding, but I do think that's not exactly the case. They're going to get married, and then we're going to see the fallout from Micah's broken nose, having one nostril nearly ripped off, and the end of his relationship to Veronica. Spoiler alert. I mean, I would think at this point, if you tune in, you're like, I don't even know how these two are even on camera together. I mean, was this even real or partially staged? It is so toxic and wild, and seems like she is not really into Micah at all. What she's into is humiliating him on television because he cheated on her. That's just my 2 cents. It's like so crazy to watch. Okay. Let's start at the beginning, and then we'll get to, the really infamous, intense therapy scenes between Micah and Veronica. Last night's episode, The House Guests, it's titled that because Lydia and Zach at the end of the episode go down to Boca and stay with Veronica and Micah. I actually feel like I got to issue a bit of an apology on this podcast to Micah Plath. I mean, it's getting hard for me to defend my girl Veronica. Okay, it is. Have you all been in this position where you had somebody in your life? Veronica and I have had many conversations offline. She's been on this podcast. I like Veronica. I believe a lot of what she's saying about the toxicity of Kim, Barry. I think everybody saw like a different side of Barry last week with the creep factor. But she's just so defensive and sarcastic and cutting people down and all about like a challenge of a fight. It's like now she's just looking for the fight. And it's like, girl, I think with Olivia, you knew Olivia was struggling with a lot of things. Obviously, marrying Ethan really young was a bad decision. She knew there was something wrong with the pressures that Kim and Barry were putting on them and what they were asking them to do. But she was trying to figure it out in I think, a more kind way. She really loved Ethan. And again, I think Veronica loves Micah. I think the therapist nailed that. Like, Veronica, you are operating from a place of complete fear, but this is like irrational. And again, I don't want to compare, Veronica and Micah are 2 different women. Okay. So they're going to handle things completely different. But have you all had that friend where they're just like, all of a sudden they get in a fight and you're like, ooh, oh, you're wrong, bitch. And I'm going to try to be your friend, but I don't agree with you at all. That's where I'm at with my girl, Veronica. So The House Guest last night is the title of the episode. And of course, we start out last night. Oh, it was a big episode. It was a really big episode. But Zach is moving in with Barry and Isaac. That's where we begin last night, because we found out in prior episodes that Zach, who lives in Colorado, by the way, that's where Lydia and Zach connected and met, was in Colorado, has decided to move to Georgia, actually Florida. They're going to move to Florida. He's going to be a tennis pro down there, and they're going to build their lives closer to Lydia's family. Okay. So in the meantime, of course, they don't kiss. They definitely don't bone. So Zach is moving in to Isaac's bedroom temporarily and staying with Barry. That's where we pick up to last night. Family has a major issue with Zach. Zach seems to know what he wants. He kind of runs the show. He dictates things. He's not afraid to share his opinion. And they don't like that. I think it's given the family PTSD of where Olivia, like what she grew into. At first, we know Olivia was like part of the fold, part of the fam. And then she began speaking up, objecting, wanting things her way. And Kim ain't having that. So Lydia is going to be staying with Mariah. Zach is staying with Barry. And Isaac feels that Zach has pushed his way into the family, now into the home. And Isaac thinks that Zach is bossy and has to have everything his way. Okay. So there's still a fair amount of tension between the family and Zach as they're getting to know him. Zach and Lydia, by the way, they've started their YouTube channel. If you can simply search, I believe it's the Wise family. Zach Wise YouTube channel. So they're answering a lot of fans' questions. They're posting more about their life, everything that you would want to know on their very own new YouTube channel. Okay. So, and on that this week, Becoming Wise is the YouTube. You can follow it. And this week they were even commenting under people that were like, look, Kim, Barry, this all seems super toxic. How, the boys, Ethan and Micah, came after Zach about, are you gay? All this stuff. And basically they responded and they were like, yeah, we agree. We know one of the most difficult things in our marriage and Becoming Wise, why we're launching this YouTube channel, is because we are trying to navigate through having a healthy relationship with Lydia's family, but also creating boundaries and not putting up with the BS. Good luck. Good luck to that. So Zach goes on to say that since they've met, they haven't had really any time to relax, he and Lydia. They don't even have time to breathe. And they kind of hint at the fact that, yeah, they're getting married, but they really don't, they haven't spent much time like together, calm, relaxed prior to leading up to the wedding. In last night's episode, we're about 2 weeks away from the wedding at this point, okay? So again, instead of sort of slowing things down and taking time to enjoy one another, they're picking up and they're going to go visit Micah and Veronica. So then we go and we check in on what's going on with Micah and Veronica. Nothing good. Nothing good. Not a darn good thing. It ain't one damn thing good going on at Micah and Veronica's house. We can tell you that. Okay, well, they are in therapy. That's where we open last night's show. Okay, with the scene with Micah and Veronica. They started therapy. This therapist, she needs a raise ASAP. Like to me, that therapist looked like, because they obviously TLC has to find a therapist that's willing to be on TV, allow them to use her image or his, edit the way they want, right? So this therapist is probably thinking to herself, oh, this will be easy. 2-hour session. We'll film it on TV. It'll be great for my practice. She looked like she was like, run, Micah. You were the toxic bitch. This woman looked like she had all she could do to not get up out of that chair and like slap Veronica across the face. She needed a raise immediately. She's like, this ain't even worth the promotion. I don't even know what to tell you about this. I'm traumatized now. So Micah says at the beginning of the therapy session that his intentions of going to therapy is to become a better version of Micah. But he thinks that he's really there because Veronica wants Micah to become more like Veronica. She doesn't really comment back to that, but the session basically goes downhill from there. And every discussion that they have, they open essentially with the lack of trust. And they open with, yeah, what's going on in our relationship? Well, on the ride over here, Micah was searching for nudes of Ethan's girlfriend, Tegan. Teague. What? Does Teague have an OnlyFans? That would have been such a good twist to this whole thing. We all know Ethan's girlfriend, Tegan, by the way, who I think is completely a Kim 2.0. Fits in with the family perfectly. Something about her low key. She does have more exposure than Ethan, but something about her, I think, perfect. They're a good fit, right? So Veronica ends up basically saying in this therapy session, like he's been Googling, pictures of of the girlfriend and it just it goes from 0 to 100. Okay. There's a headline that Veronica shows Micah that Tegan has an OF. And Micah says, okay, wait, like he's in the therapy session, like bamboozled. Like, wait, what are you talking about? I called my brother. I asked Ethan if this was true. He said, I don't think it's true, but if you find anything on the internet, let me know. Like, call me and let me know, right? I think all of us would do the same thing, especially if we were on a reality show. Veronica is like, you will never hang out with Tegan again, ever. I don't want you in the same room with him. I don't want you around him. You're a cheater. You're a liar. I can't trust you. And you will sleep with your brother's girlfriend. And I'm telling you, Micah Plath, how does Micah Plath stay seated in these scenes? Like, wouldn't any other man? I'm not sure. Maybe he's not that bright. I mean, I started out this podcast saying like I was going to apologize to him, but then now I'm like, is he that smart? He sits there and takes it. And the therapist is like, wait, how are you getting from A to Z? She's like, pump the brakes, Veronica. Like, you think Micah is going to sleep with his brother's girlfriend if she has nude pictures on the internet? You guys, it escalates like crazy. The other thing too, I don't particularly care for about Veronica is like she's making women look completely batshit crazy. Completely. She make us look off the rails. It is not good. The therapist is like, Veronica, pump the brakes. Like, you have to believe him, okay? He's made mistakes in the past. He's cheated on you in the past, but he's owned up to those. And you have to believe him and move forward. Veronica accused Micah of trying to, get with Tegan potentially. And we find out later in last night's episode that Tegan says point blank to the camera that she does not have an OnlyFans and there are not nude pictures of her. Well, she doesn't say that, but she says she doesn't have an OnlyFans. There may be some sexy photos. This is rumor that I've heard. I haven't been able to find them. Unlike Veronica, my man don't care if I'm Googling nude pictures, especially of women. So no one's stopping me, okay? But Tegan says point blank, and as far as I've seen and read, there is no Tegan OnlyFans, okay? The therapist is like spot on with Veronica. Veronica is coming from a place of fear, which is why there's so much accusation against Micah. And Micah is like, it's hurtful. I'm so torn between her. I love her so much. And then my family. And this therapist, you can tell, is like eyeing Micah like, okay, there's no hope here. At the end of the therapy session, poor Micah hangs out there with the therapist. I think he's looking for the therapist to say, this is a lost cause, okay? I'm going to need you to write me a $150 check for this session, but there's no need to rebook. You don't need to go onto my Calendly or whatever it is, calendar invite that everyone has. You don't need to have another session. It just goes from like bad to worse. I mean, Veronica kind of laughs at his religion because Veronica basically says in this session, I operate eye for an eye. I operate by the golden rule. You treat me well, great. If you don't, I treat you bad and then even worse. I love going to war. The therapist's like, Veronica, like, no, what? I cannot even believe she's saying this. And then Micah goes, yeah, I mean, I operate the 10 commandments. Veronica starts laughing about his religion. I'm like, how did these two even get together? They have nothing in common. And then I think this is really where the therapist is completely out, is Veronica tells the therapist that she loves operating in the mud, slinging mud, throwing mud. It feels good. And the therapist is like, girl, like if you are just messy and in the mud and slinging mud and eye for an eye, no relationship is ever going to work, right? All right. It is so intense. We take a pause and we go to Isaac and Ethan. And first of all, let's just recognize, like, I'm obsessed with how redneck they are. They're on a tractor. The tractor has some like pole extension that Ethan is hanging off of and swinging around while Isaac is driving. I mean, I believe like David Dobrik's YouTube crew, Jeff from David Dobrik's YouTube crew lost an eye doing something similar. They were like operating a crane. Anyhow, it doesn't seem to deter them. They seem like they enjoy danger. And they basically, Isaac's like, yeah, we're just two guys. We're country guys. We're never living in a city ever. And we love it down here in Georgia. And this is what we do. Okay, so, Kaylin and Tegan are there, the girlfriends, and they're just looking on like, oh, boys will be boys. There they are. And again, I grew up in Maine, like with a lot of tractors. Okay. I like a country guy. Isaac and Ethan are like a little too country for me. Sorry. It's a little too Carhartt, but God bless. Okay, so, they're going to have this paint night date, okay? And by the way, Kaylin and Tegan, two peas in a pod. Honestly, like, same person, just like slightly different font, but like same person. I actually have a hard time figuring out who's who. They look exactly alike to me. Ethan and Isaac, while the girls are kind of chit-chatting, getting paint night ready, are supposed to be grilling steaks for the first time on a charcoal grill. And again, I mean, I guess you can't really expect them to use Google to figure out these obvious things because Kim never showed them what the internet was until 2021. But they douse the charcoal so much with like fuel, like grill lighter, and they don't let the grill lighting, whatever. Obviously I don't grill. Okay, I think you're getting that from this. Okay, but they put like lighter fluid on. They don't let the lighter fluid burn off the charcoal before they put the steaks on. So the steaks end up tasting like pure charcoal. Because Ethan goes, yeah, growing up, I mean, my dad had a grill, but like we just cooked on the stovetop. It's like there's a lot of different ways to cook a steak, pal, and it only requires about 15 minutes of research there on the internet. They don't even take out their phones. I don't know if there's a I don't know if there's a phone on that farm, to be honest. I don't even know if Kim has working Wi-Fi. Clearly from last night, didn't seem like it. So the women start talking shit about Veronica a little. They're very wise. Tegan and Kaylin, very wise, I think. They kiss up to the family. And again, they say they really enjoy the Plath family, especially Tegan. Tegan is Team Ethan, Team Plath family. And they basically ask each other, oh, have you met Veronica and what do you think? And, Kaylin's like, yeah, I met her within 5 minutes. She wanted me to start talking shit about the family and I'm just not going to do that. And Miss Kim, and I shut that down. And that was it. And so Kaylin's like agreeing with her. You can tell like they're not really fans so far of Veronica. And so they basically say that, they don't like Veronica's behavior. She's always causing problems. And they end up doing this paint night. They're all supposed to be painting each other on a little, easel. And they have like 7 minutes to do it or something like that. And Ethan decides to paint Tegan nude. Now, Tegan, like, I love Tegan. Like, her reaction is the same for everything. Zach and Lydia engaged. Like, I'm glad to be here. Ethan painting her nude. Why'd you do that? Like, she's got one record, okay? It's like, doesn't change. She doesn't seem phased. He's like, well, there's all these rumors that you've gotten OF, so I thought I'd paint you nude. Okay. By the way, he actually seemed to paint well in the nude. Like, that was actually probably the best one, which is not saying much. Because Tegan painted Ethan with a turban on his head. It was just very bizarre. It was very bizarre. Like, and of course, Tegan's like, didn't you ever do art when you were homeschooled? And Ethan's like, no, Kim never told us anything about paint. The only clay I ever worked with, I dug in the dirt till I hit clay. I added water and then I made balls and I threw them at my siblings. Okay. Redneck artwork. I am a redneck, so don't come for me, okay? I grew up when I was little. our Friday night was we would get a soft serve ice cream at the Frosty in Rangeley, Maine, and we would go to the dump and watch bears eat trash. And they would bait the bears with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Okay. So don't come for me like, oh, what do you think? You're better than them because you're not a redneck. No, I am. Okay. Oh yeah, we would sit on the roof of the hood of our vehicle. We would eat an ice cream and we would watch the bears eat trash. It was an epic growing up. Okay. I know redneck. So anyhow, that was Ethan's art class. Okay. There you go. Now we're going to pop back to Ethan and Veronica. And this therapist at this point has given up, really. She's like, Veronica, if you're going to move forward, you've got to forgive this man. You have got to move forward because you are destroying this relationship. And Veronica, the problem with Veronica is she is that girl or that person, the person in your life, they have a response for everything and it's never productive. So Veronica's like, oh, he's already destroyed me. I'm completely destroyed by him. And she's like, okay, but if you're going to move forward, you both have to rebuild each other together without any further tit for tat. And then Veronica's like, well, it's kind of like the tortoise and the hare. And, I'm the hare. And the therapist is like, what happens at the end of that folklore, right? The tortoise wins. Mike is like smiling. He's sitting there. It's just, at this point, it feels like Veronica has signed up for this season to humiliate Micah for these past cheating things. It does. Now, I will say, I've said it from the beginning. I think it's also clear, but it's just gone overboard. I do think that Veronica is a woman scorned. I think she was madly in love. I think when she did her confessional last night and she says she grew up bullied, she was never the pretty one. She was never considered pretty. She's super tall. Also, I think it's been revealed her stepdad is Ariana Grande's biological father. So I think there's probably a lot of pressure there. And so I think Veronica just can't, and she's still young, right? She's in her 20s. I think there's no self-reflection and maturity there, and there's probably a lot of hurt. And landing Micah, a TV star who is hot as hell, and may still have an incredible modeling career, because you guys are all sending me the pictures where it looks like his nose is kind of healed, and it's still just disjointed, but still there. I'm sure she felt like, oh my God, this is my guy and he's cheated and that's very hard to get over. But it goes from bad to worse. And Micah says that basically tells the therapist that Veronica thrives on chaos. And then she says that that's why she likes Micah. It's just, you know what I mean? It's tit for tat. It's never like, yeah, I own it. And she did try to own a few things last night, but overall she's like, yeah, that's why I'm drawn to you, because there's just chaos all around you all the time. And the outside forces, Micah, in your life change everything. This therapist, by the way, was so great. She was so great. She's like, you got to have accountability, Veronica. You got to have accountability. And Lord, I don't hear any. That's basically what she tells the camera. She's like, this session, I'm exhausted because I don't hear 1 ounce of accountability from Veronica. And then at the end of the session, right? So she's like, you have to take accountability. You got to be on each other's teams. Veronica basically gets up, walks out of the office. And that's when Micah is left face to face, I think, with the therapist, waiting for the therapist to go, I've been doing this job a lot of time and there's no hope. So there's 0.0 hope. Okay. 0.0 hope. All right. Before we wrap up with like the final season kind of scene from last night, and then also the preview, which looks epic. And it's funny because it's almost like Ethan and Veronica are a bit of the same person. I'll discuss more of my theory on that. I have to thank Beam Organics. Guys, I love Beam Organics. I think you are too. Beam Organics, if you haven't heard about them, are known for their super powder foods for kids. They have amazing flavors. It's a powder that you just take a scoop, boom, you put it in a cup of milk for your kiddos, and then It's so easy for your children to get all their nutrients that they need. Beam Kids is now available online at shopbeam.com/TSFS. Because you're a listener to my show, you can take advantage of their limited time pricing of up to 35% off plus 2 free gifts when you use the code TSFS at checkout. This is a limited time discount, so you win and your order helps support No Kid Hungry's mission to ensure kids have healthy meals daily. This is what I like about this company too. Go to shopbeam.com/TSFS. And remember, by supporting Beam Kids, you're helping support No Kid Hungry. Go to shopbeam.com today. One more time, that's shopbeam.com/TSFS. Use code TSFS to get your exclusive discount of up to 35% off. And it's an all-in-one super powder. If you're here, Beam Kids is 1 scoop a day of 40 essential ingredients, including greens, probiotics, prebiotics, fruits, and vitamins to fuel healthy growth, all in 2 amazing flavors that kiddos love, chocolate milk and chocolate chip cookie. KJ, by the way, loves the chocolate milk. He thinks it's just really chocolate milk. I mix it in. I'm like, oh, you're getting a chocolate milk today. He loves that. You can make it so simple by just combining 1 scoop with 8 ounces of milk. Shake it, stir it, or froth it. You're good to go. By the way, this can be a breakfast, lunch, a snack time. Beam Kids fits into any routine. I enjoy it so much. I think you will too. And KJ is really loving it. Okay, final scenes last night. So Lydia and Zach head down. Now, by the way, the other thing that popped up last night is Zach tells us, to the camera, that now that he's had time to reflect, he does find it disrespectful that Micah and Ethan would ask about his sexuality, ask him if he was gay, right? Which has been a huge talking point, and people have had very strong feelings about this throughout the season. So we go last night, Zach and Lydia are coming down to visit Micah and Veronica. Now, it does seem lighter. Veronica has come out of this therapy session. Says she's going to really try. They all hang out. They play truth or dare. They have cocktails together. Gotta love it. This family, man, 4 years ago, they wouldn't even drink a Diet Coke. Now, Veronica whipped him up some espresso martinis, and Micah served. He's like, hey, so Lydia, now that you turned 21, let's bond together and have a beer. Let's have some alcohol and shots. Play truth or dare. Woo! It was a crazy night. But anyhow, Zach and Lydia show up. Micah is doing a ton of work around the house, which this is where I owe an apology, because I had said like, yeah, sounds like Micah was kind of a user to Veronica's place in Boca, because she was like, oh, he didn't pay anything. He's literally digging a ditch, fixing their plumbing because they're like leaking shit out of their pipes. I'm like, okay, while the guy may not have had 2 nickels to rub together, any man that's like digging a hole getting under your house deserves some credit. The house is gorgeous. They've redone the kitchen, looks beautiful inside. So anyhow, Micah and Zach start to bond a little. Now, I was a little disappointed because Zach seems like a guy that speaks up for himself. And Micah said to him, hey, I know we were kind of giving you a hard time about the gay stuff. Like, are you cool with it? He goes, oh, yeah, totally cool, man. No, yeah, bro. And he's like, oh, good. Okay, so are you gay? And Zach's like, no, come on. Like, no, dude, I'm so straight, bro. And he's like, okay, I think you're gay. You're gay. Anyhow, they're playing. They're like joking back and forth. But I thought, and maybe Zach was just in the moment. But I thought, well, wait a minute. At the start of this episode, you told us that now you found it disrespectful. You don't want to take a second to say that? Zach tries to man up too when he goes under the house to look at the shit plumbing. And that's when Micah tries to like shovel the dirt and keep him in there, and they're all joking around. And of course, there's a bit of a double standard. I will say this, when Veronica has questions or has given them a hard time, it's like, oh, you're breaking up the family. But when they tease Zach, Lydia, everybody defends it. Like, oh, I know Zach can handle it, and boys are boys, and that's just what those Plath boys do. It's like, ugh, really? Okay. So anyhow, they're having a good time. They play truth or dare that night. And, it seems like Veronica's making more of an effort. But obviously, Zach and Lydia know that there is tension. And Lydia says to Veronica, basically, I hope you're coming to the wedding. And I know everybody has differences, but I'm really hoping people are mature enough to put those aside. And that's kind of where we ended last night, because Veronica's like, I don't know if I can. I have Botox. I'm not sure I have that much Botox. So the preview, again, the previews are so good. We preview the family getting ready for the actual wedding day at the Plath farm. And Ethan and Kim aren't happy. Kim's like, first of all, Barry's trying to be the cool dad. That's why he signed off on this wedding so quickly. He's trying to be cool. He wants to fit in. I agree with Kim. Like, actually, Kim, like, now that she's, back on, off the wagon and like booze hound, makes actually a lot of sense. Kim's making a lot of sense this season. She's like, Barry just like goes along with everything so he can be the cool, like fit in dad. And then they have all these like clips of Barry getting ready for the wedding. He's like, hey guys, hey. Yeah. Barry is like, I've always said, like, Barry's as bad as Kim. He just fakes it better. But Kim and Ethan are really having this moment of like, yeah, you know what? If somebody's about to make a biggest mistake of their life, don't you say something? Shouldn't we say something? And essentially what they're saying is like one last attempt to get Lydia to not marry Zach so quickly. And Ethan is like, yeah, there's a lot of pent up frustration. Now, I don't think that's about Zach and Lydia. I think that is towards Veronica. And again, setting the scene for this epic fight that's going to go down. I think it's about Veronica spreading these rumors that Tegan has an OnlyFans. We see Ethan throwing down the tables that are going to be used at the wedding. And at some point when everyone's there, he gets in that mobster car, peels out, dust in the wind everywhere. We also see that Veronica, fatal mistake, decides to go to Lydia and Zach's wedding. Shows up, she's feeding the animals, and lo and behold, within 30 minutes of being there, Micah takes off with his brothers. And of course, she says, the only reason I came to this wedding is we agreed to stay by one another's side all the time. It's like, okay, girl, come on. You're in your 20s. You're at a wedding. This is his family. He's going to go do his thing. Go do yours. So it's another, and Zach and Lydia are like, this is the happiest day of our lives. We're ready. It's going to be an epic throwdown. So that's where we leave it. That was episode 7. As I mentioned at the start, we're getting 13 episodes. I cannot wait. I'm ready for all of it. So what do you all think? You can follow all my updates on my TikTok at The Sarah Fraser Show. Okay, bye everybody.